Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we are going to talk about Trump being in the zone and a question that came in, and we're just going to kind of go over why something is coming up and why it actually may be more likely than people might imagine. The question that came in was basically, hey, my wife and I were watching the Q&A about Trump's legal issues over on the second channel, and we're trying to figure out what you meant by special secure installation. And the question was about, if Trump is found guilty, what are they going to do with him? Is the Secret Service going to go to jail? And I listed off a bunch of different options. One of those options is a secure facility. Apparently, they were arguing over whether or not that meant something they hadn't heard of or a place like Guantanamo, something that you may not have heard of, but it has happened before. Before we get into this, we have to talk a little bit about the sentencing guidelines again. We've talked about them a bunch on the channel multiple times, but there's one aspect of it that we haven't talked about because, generally speaking, anybody we have talked about on this channel, they're either in Zone A or they're in Zone D. There's no middle ground on this because generally it just wouldn't show up in our coverage. So, for those who have missed all the videos talking about guidelines, it's real simple. It's the federal government. There's a chart. There's a chart for everything involving the federal government. There are points, offense level. That goes up and down on the left-hand side of the chart. Going across the top is the criminal history category. Criminal history is your record. The points, the offense level going up and down, that is the severity of the crime. In statutes, there's basically, it points to different levels in the sentencing guidelines. And they figure up a score where the offense level and the criminal history category meet. Well, that's your sentencing range. Those sentencing ranges fall into different zones, A, B, C, and D. Okay? I'll go ahead and tell you now, I have figured out Trump's likely guidelines for the willful retention case. I've seen attorneys do it on YouTube. The one thing that everybody agrees upon, because you can figure the points differently by assuming he gets an enhancement or doesn't get it, but the one thing that all of them are agreed upon is that he's in Zone D. So this is what the different zones mean. If you fall into Zone A, the judge could give you a fine only, a sentence of probation with or without a condition of community confinement or home detention, and a sentence of imprisonment. All of those options are on the table. Zone B is a sentence of probation with a condition of community confinement or home detention, a split sentence, meaning going to prison for part of it and doing home confinement for the other, or a sentence of imprisonment. Zone C, split sentence, sentence of imprisonment. Zone D, imprisonment. There's no other options. Now, those are normal guidelines for normal people. The former president of the United States may not be held to those guidelines. But if he was, or if they were trying to keep it as close as possible, he would be confined somehow. So, what can they do? Because, they're not going to send the former president to a place that you would watch a documentary about. They're going to go somewhere else, right? During Watergate, there was a guy, John Dean. I want to say he was White House counsel. He flipped. And he was, I guess he was kind of enrolled in what most people would call witness protection. When it came time for him to do his time, because he had to plead guilty, and he got a hugely reduced sentence, but when it came time for him to actually serve it, He did it at a base, I want to say in Baltimore, Fort Holabird, I think. He did it on an installation, and the marshals actually confined him there. So he did time, but he did it in a very different way, isolated and secured from other people that are in the system. If the judge was to decide that Trump needed to actually do time, that's probably how it would be done. The Secret Service might provide the inner ring of protection, and the marshals would be there to make sure he didn't leave. That's an option that they might use. They've done it before. It's not, as much as everything with Trump is unprecedented, there's a whole lot of precedent for different aspects of it. If that's the route it goes, they wouldn't send him to Guantanamo, but they might use a route like that. So there is security for the former president, and there is also confinement for defendant Trump. So that's what I meant by that. And again, it's happened before. It's not something that is out of the realm of possibility. I mean, they did it for a White House counsel. They'd probably do it for a former president. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.